welcome to Travels with Geordie. If this is your first visit, my name is Peter Knowles and I live on a pair of classic wooden motor cruisers in and around Victoria, British Columbia, along with my girlfriend Andrea and the loving memory of my pup Geordie. Currently we're aboard MV Poem, the little 27-foot 1938 Edwin Monk design motor cruiser, and we're just finishing up annual maintenance. Although it's pretty late in the year, it is coming close to early October. It's also teeming rain today, so I'm awfully glad we're in the shed. I'm going to continue reefing out these foredecks today because somehow that just seems like the right sort of thing to do. And now, just to clean out the seams, and these have to be perfect with fresh wood both sides for the new teak deck system's sealant to stick to. You know, wouldn't a shelf right there be awesome? Okay, fortunately I do have one last lonely little piece of 3/8 sapelli mahogany around that'll be perfect for this shelf. The only problem with it is that it is slightly cupped from sitting around for years, but we can deal with that and I'll show you how. Pretty fundamental. You know why the cup happened, because of the way it was cut out of the grain of the tree and it tends to flatten out. We can overcome that with force, and partly that is what we'll do. We'll put it in place this way and the screws will hold it down. But more than that, we'll also try to use some moisture and some dryness to bring it back. So this is the cup side, the concave side, and we're going to get it a little bit wet. Okay, this is a positively drenched piece of paper towel, and what we're trying to do here is just swell up the wood fibers on this side of the board. Not rocket science. Now you say, won't they just dry out again afterwards? Well, yes they will, but with any luck, by that time we'll have some finish on here and stabilized it, and both sides will dry out at the same rate and it'll stay relatively flat. Plus, of course, the mechanical fasteners that are going to tie it down. Okay, while that is soaking, we're going to try and shrink up the other side a bit, which is convex. And by doing that with a little heat. Normally I do this by just putting it out in the sun, but the sun isn't here yet today. All right, well, I don't expect much change yet. Oh, actually, we've come a fair ways. We'll let this moisture do its thing, and we'll move on to making some brackets. Now, if the laser engraver wasn't sitting in the dinghy on its way out to Geordie, I'd fired it up again and made a little template for a bracket so that I could just trace it onto this piece of wood to make 4 more brackets. That thing is going to be seriously useful. But in the meantime, I have to manually make the first template. Okay, I'll make a template on this nice light stuff here. So, on that, it's going to be an asymmetrical bracket about 4 3/4 deep by about 3.5 tall. That'll do. Need some curves. How about this? There we go. Maybe that. And that. And then maybe slightly smaller than that. How about that? Yeah, right there. That's our bracket. There we go. Clean that up a bit and we can trace them on to here. Now, when you make a bracket with wood, you always want to make it with the grain as if it's coming out to support the wood. If you make it the way the grain is shown on here, the bracket just doesn't look right. So I always make the bracket on a bit of an angle. So I'm going to try and figure out how many I can get out of this. This is, I'm probably only going to get 2. Anyway, whatever. after all that talk of getting the grain in the right direction, I got it in the wrong direction. It's gotta be like this. Not that, not that. Old friend. Okay, so now I got to figure out how I'm going to attach these to the wall. The wall is here and the shelf is here. Now obviously I could drill some holes through here and put some screws through and then bung them. But actually the way a bracket works is that almost all the force off the wall is at the top. So the best place I could put a screw would be at the top, but that's a long screw from here. So how about a pocket screw from here? And that is the added convenience of the fact that once I put the shelf on, I can't even see it. So absolutely no bungs or sanding to be done on the bottom. Well, one might be good, but how about, seeing as we have all this depth, we actually put two. A second very, very long one. I just have to look at what screws I have. But anyway, let's get started. This whole thing won't fit easily into my standard pocket screw Craig kit. So I'm going to use the mini Craig clamp-on clampy pocket screw dingle. Anyway, let's get this set up and see how that works. Basically, center it there. Get a clamp on here. Yeah, that's feeling pretty good. Let's see what we can do with that. Beauty. Nice, deep, long pocket screw ready to hold that together. Let's do one more this way and then figure out how we're going to do the more sophisticated version. Nice. Beauty. So nice. Okay, now for the second pocket screw, I have set the collar as far up here as I think I can and still grab it with the drill. Let's see where that lands. And if I place that on here about there perhaps. If I take this 3-inch screw, yes, I know that this is a deck screw. Let's put it about there and about there, and that'll give me enough bite. Absolutely. So what I'm going to do is say I have to put, oh, wrong end of the pencil, the guide on to right about there. Okay. Now, because this is a long drill, I have to make sure I'm going straight. I do not want to pop out the side. Ooh, eesh, you know, that would be horrible. Okay, there's the pocket done. Now, obviously, it's not, the tip didn't come out the bottom, so I need a smaller drill to drill the rest of the way. Let's try that. Enter the handy dandy aircraft bit. Okay, folks. Close enough to center for me. Now, the most vexing part of this project is going to be the return. In other words, I want to return the edge grain around the end of the plank here so that when this is finished, we don't have end grain out here, especially because this is going to join up with a piece of trim that's already on the boat, which is edge grain. So to do that, I have to remove a small section of here, and then right here I got to turn it a 45 so that when I make a little piece of edge grain out of this other piece of wood, it can be glued on here and miter perfectly. You'll see as it all comes together. So let's make a little bit of edge grain here. Okay, so as long as I don't cut all the way through, I'm sort of in the right ballpark here. Okay, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. This far exceeds my pay scale. Oh my gosh. That's pretty good. Okay, inside. So the shelf is going to go along here. Pretty excited about it. And so you can see I've already left a little bit of a return here because I thought I was just going to return it for a small section as I did over on this side. And so now I've got to basically miter into that and carry on. So what I'm going to do is temporarily install a couple of the brackets so that I can temporarily install the shelf and finagle that little return piece. As you can see, I've expelled Andrea from the wheelhouse for this operation. She's doing her homework in the aft cabin. Okay, so that's going to have to be cut there. And I'm going to say that's going to go about there. If you haven't been watching me for a while, this is a lovely little 23 gauge pin nailer, which I use a lot. Very, very handy for stuff like this. Now the other end of the shelf is up against the door, so I'm not going to do that big return. I'm not so worried about sanding over the end grain, but I'm not going to put the router on it because routing across end grain can result in a blowout. Plus, that tiny little line there is where it sits up against the door frame, and I want that to be nice and square. So I'm only going to ease it, put this round over up until that line, and I'm going to do all that just with a sander. I must say that is a lot easier. Okay. in the shelf itself. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And lined up perfectly. Yeah, very nice. Very nice. Very nice. Very, very, very nice. Oh my gosh. Andrea!
Yeah?
Come and see.
Ooh, that looks really nice.
You like it? Come on over here.
Okay. Oh, that looks so, oh, it's gonna be so handy.
Nice, eh?
Yeah, no, it looks really
Very, very handy. Now, I'm going to put a little fiddle on it. A fiddle is like a little edge.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that stuff wouldn't slide off. But in the meantime, we're just living aboard here or living aboard at the causeway, so it's not a problem. And I want that fiddle to be a little strip of brass.
Ooh,
Wouldn't that be nice? Anyway,
super nice.
so when I can find that piece of brass, I'll just route out a tiny little groove there and press that brass in there. But I think that will be very, very nice.
Yay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Put something on it. There we go. All right, and I'm off out to MV Geordie. It's about noon, the sun is high and it's hot, and I'm gonna try and seal up the cabin top. I have a assortment of things to help me do that, and I got up early this morning and went out and wiped all the dew off, so it should be good and dry. It feels like summer, but it's not. It's fall. The days are short and very, very heavy dews. All right, let's get mostly sanding. Hello, Geordie, my old friend. Okay. Okay, you can see I've removed the upper windshield, and you can see how far I got with the removal of the fiberglass earlier this year. I've moved the lawn furniture to the foredeck, and I'm going to make an effort to sand this down a little bit, because I actually had already put epoxy on this, and it's actually holding up pretty well, but I just want to give it a bit of a skiff, because in some places I believe the epoxy is a little bit etched, and I think paint will preserve that a lot better. Okay, let's get to work. Okay, so I have 2 old cans of Petit Easy Epoxy White, which is great because they have to be used up at some point, and they're probably not in the best shape, probably full of contaminants and partly cured. A perfect use for this. Now this is an exceptionally good paint. It's the same paint I use on the top sides of the hull, and that's what I put on here already. The great thing about that is it will protect well. It's got good UV protection, and it's very, very hard and will sand to a good substrate when it's time to find the fiberglass up here. So I'm really quite pleased. Ah, it's like new. It's going to take 2 coats for sure, especially in some areas. The huge advantage of painting it is now it'll seal up many of the tiny little pinholes, but more importantly, it'll make it very obvious where any other holes are that I'll be able to come back and seal with caulking or sealant. All right, with the first coat of paint dry, the next step is some cheap white acrylic caulk that will at least deal with all these nasty voids until I can deal with it properly. Okay then, back to the foredeck. Well, the bungs on the foredeck are actually in pretty good shape, except for these 4 right here and about 2 more across the rest of the foredeck. And obviously this one is deteriorated to the point where there's been moisture in the wood so long there's a big split in there. So I do have to tidy these up. Now getting these out and then getting the fasteners out and then refastening and rebunging is going to be quite ambitious. So I'm going to try just one at a time, and I'll probably try with this really bad one because the other option is just to clean it out and fill it with something. But I'd really like to be able to replace it with real bungs. So I'm going to start, as I often do, with heat, because what's left in here is definitely going to be easier to remove if it's softened. Okay, well, whatever is remaining of this fastener, it has absolutely no slot or any sort of screw evidence left to it. In fact, if I didn't know better, I'd say it's a nail. Perhaps it is. Let's open up another one just to see what we get. Well, I can't say any of these fasteners. This one might have once been a screw. There's the slightest hint of a slot on there. It is very close to the surface, therefore I certainly can't put a bung in on top of that screw. This is going to be difficult. So I'm going to say the likelihood of getting any of these out with any sort of screwdriver is completely impossible. In fact, the tiny little slot I saw may only be just a scratch. Whatever this fastener is, and I'm starting to believe it might be a nail. Those of you who know more about this may be able to clarify that for me. I'm actually going to try and set it a little deeper with a pin punch. That will allow me to do something a little more sophisticated above it, because it's only about 1 millimeter below the surface of the deck now. So if I can punch this down another little bit, which I've just successfully done. So if it was a nail, now it's just set better than it was. And if it was a screw, all the better. And to be fair, that went very nice. Okay, now I think I have a chance of maybe getting a new bung in here. Now, the bungs currently fit pretty tight, which is good because I would like to be able to clean up the edges of this hole just a little bit. So I'm going to just touch it with a 3/8 drill. Just touch it. Okay, so I'm going to whip up a little West System epoxy, but to that I'm going to add some nice mahogany sawdust because I'm going to be filling that big crack as well. Okay. Okay, that should work relatively well. So in terms of fixing up the brightwork on Poem, some areas held up really quite well, and that's the easy sort of flat areas. Some areas like here where water tends to collect, the scupper I added, there were no scuppers at all on this toe rail. And there's a seam here. So this is a place that's prone to damage, and well, the 3 or 4 coats of varnish was not enough to look after that. Then I have all these little problems where the tape stuck. Oh gosh, I'm just so annoyed about that. Some are worse than others, but I have a solution that I think is working pretty well for these. In some places I'm completely removing the varnish again because there was so much failure in it and cracked. I really have to try again, and I'm going to use a different product this time. There are 2 main, at least that I know of, varnishes in the wooden boat community. One is Epiphanes, Epiphanes, however you want to pronounce it, and that's what I've been using for years. And the other is Tonkinois. Now, apparently Tonkinois is a little softer, a little less shiny. You put it on unthinned, and you don't have to sand between coats. And I've recently found a source for it, so I've always wanted to try it, so this is the time to give it a go. I think this boat has so many moving joints that I need something that's got way more flexibility than the Epiphanes has had for me, so we'll see what that does. And there are some areas like this seam that really also need some better treatment because that seam moved over the winter and water got in. Huh. Boats. All right, so my approach for all these areas where the tape pulled off the varnish is basically just to sand each one locally and feather it back into the good varnish one at a time. That way I can restain those locations before sanding all the rest of the boat down and losing track of where these are. So I'm actually going to do this one with the fine tool because it just makes sense. Okay, so now I can hit that with some of the mahogany stain that I put on the entire cabin sides, and that should blend in relatively well before I give everything another coat of varnish, or 2, or 10. And there we go. Now I'll just give the whole place an even sanding, and that should pretty much disappear. Okay, so the technique here is just to give an overcoat of stain, and what that'll do is just restain any exposed raw wood and then just give perhaps the slightest tint everywhere else, basically just to pump the red back up a bit, because red is the color that is driven out of stain the quickest, and the beautiful red mahogany look is dead in a year or two. So I'm experimenting with just refreshing the red a little bit at each annual varnish. For instance, all of this, I didn't strip down to bare wood. This is just sanded the varnish a little bit. But doesn't it look delightful with a little bit of fresh stain on it? Yes, yes, yes. Hello there and welcome to the Travels with Geordie Beer of the Week, coming to you this week from the cozy aft cockpit of MV Poem in the cozy boat shed. And oh, I don't know if you can see, but we have the swans with us this afternoon. Hello, you guys. All right, let's get straight to the beer. Now, this was a special gift from a very good friend, Bo. Why don't you tell the folks at home about it?
So this is Seafarer Share, and it's from Spinnaker's Brewing. We know it well.
Yes.
And it's a barrel-aged classic IPA.
Excellent. Really looking forward to it. Thank you so much, Bo. We were to drink this at the Wooden Boat Festival, and we didn't catch up, but thanks so much for bringing it to me. Whoops.
Sorry.
I'm sure you can carry on.
Yeah, I will.
Well, this has turned out to be a bit of a challenge. What do you guys think?
It's nice.
A huge fan of IPAs,
Yeah.
are you? Anyway, let's see what the actual beer tastes like. Wow. That's actually really good.
Yeah,
it's
I
different. It
think you would
doesn't taste
like
like an IPA at all.
No,
to
it's
me.
kind of banana-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it said it sort of was casked, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It tastes like a cask beer, which is really good. All right. Well, thanks again, Bo, and I'm so sorry we didn't get to drink that with you. Let's jump straight in to the remainder of the very, very generous Patreons that joined very recently. I'll leave that to you.
Alrighty, so you've got Zam Hexamer, Christian Millie, Tom and Barb, Mike Morris, Daniel Hellrum, and we've got also from PayPal, Mark Haynes.
Well, thank you ever so much to all of you. Cheers. I do want to mention a surprise gift that came in from Robert Larson. Thank you ever so much, Robert. He must have noticed that I had lost my flush cut bung saw, and that I'd mentioned a cabinet scraper as a super useful tool. And he sent these along a little while ago, but we haven't had a chance to get to our mailbox. So thank you very, very much, Robert. What's really interesting about this, folks at home, is that this is the Robert Larson Tool Company. Have a look. He's an importer and distributor of fine quality. These are actually German-made scrapers from around the world, and I think that's super interesting, Robert, and I'm very, very grateful for that gift. Thank you so much. And we are simply left with the word of the week, and because we are feeling so rejuvenated, and the boat is on its way to being rejuvenated,
Yeah.
can you tell where we're going with this?
And the word of the week will be rejuvenated.
You know what to do with it, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
Cheers, 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 cheers.
Just say no to 5200 adhesive. There's no place I can think of on a boat. Well, I can think of on a boat you'd want it.